Hi everyone, welcome to Buckle Up Podcast. I'm Natalia Earl and I'm a certified business and life coach that loves talking to people. I'm fascinated by humans and how our brain works. What is it that makes a decision good or bad, and how does that decision ultimately shape our path and destiny? Everyone loves to talk about success, but what about the flip side? How about adversity? Failure is such a big and often necessary part of life, and it's simply unavoidable. So I invite you to join me on this inspiring, honest, unpolished interview show with breathtakingly real conversations that go deep on setbacks and hardships that are part of the puzzle that ultimately lead to growth, discovery of inner greatness, and what makes us resilient. Grab your helmet and buckle up, people. It's going to be a bumpy ride. But what a ride it will be. Today I sat down with Greg Anderson, who has 20 plus years of special operations and law enforcement experience. In light of so many events in 2020 regarding law enforcement, he decided to speak up on the behalf of the profession, and it ultimately cost him his job. But because of this, Greg has taken life in a new direction. He's a host of the Endless Endeavor podcast and a part owner of Electric North Jiu Jitsu. We had a wonderful conversation about his journey thus far, military operations in Afghanistan, what's happening in Ukraine, and current events in America. We dived into why every gun owner should go through the tactical proficiency training, the importance of Jiu Jitsu, and so much more.
My name is Greg Anderson, and I was a police officer that spoke out against the coronavirus restrictions coming up on 2 years ago now. And it's crazy that this story still has some validity, because we've seen that wasn't just a moment in time where the government kind of overstepped their boundaries and then everything went back to normal. That was the beginning of a new trajectory of this country, where the government thought they could just tell everybody what to do with regarding every single little aspect of their life, with their families, even with their businesses, within the walls of their own home. And it was just really bizarre to see this unfold from my side of my profession as a police officer, because police officers, our duties are to uphold and defend people's constitutional rights and help secure their liberties. That is what our job literally should entail. So then when we saw these mayors and these governors and these different political actors starting to leverage police to behave in a certain way to push their agenda, it immediately, right out of the gates, felt off. And it didn't just feel off to me, it felt off to everybody that I worked with, everybody that I knew inside of the profession. So that's what inspired me to speak up. And the whole purpose of that video was just to say, hey, guys, this is not what we do. Okay. You can say no as a police officer. That's okay. If you think that you're being asked by your chain of command to do something that violates your morals or your ethics, not only can you say no, you should say no. And I was hoping to see more cops stand up against this corruption that we're seeing inside of our government. And, as the story goes, I ended up getting terminated because you can't say those things publicly, Greg, and it was bizarre, because everybody told me, yeah, we agree with you. We think it's a good message. We stand with your ideas. You just can't say that in uniform. And I kept getting told that if you just made that video in your bedroom one night and in sweats, it would have been fine. And I said that wouldn't have the impact coming from just a random guy as opposed to somebody inside of law enforcement. And so that really changed the trajectory of my life. And now I own a gym and I do podcasts, and it's been a very good change. But yeah, before that, I was in the military for 10 years, and then I went into law enforcement right after that for another nearly 10 years. And I just didn't like the direction that our country was going, being someone that had been in service of this country since I was 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And so
What made you choose the military in the beginning of the beginnings?
I always tell people this is funny, because a lot of people have this powerful story about how they were called to serve, or they're patriots and all this stuff. The truth is, it was 1999. It was peacetime. There was no war going on yet. and I just wanted to do something that didn't involve going to more school. And so I knew I hated school, and I wanted to just see really what options were out there. And for whatever reason, and I was 18, I didn't know anything about the Rangers or anything about the SEALs, but I was like, if I'm going to go in, I want to do something really hard.
Mhm.
I'm not sure where that necessarily came from, but it was just like, you know what, if this is going to be something that I commit to, let's see how far I can take it. So I ended up deciding to try and join the Army Rangers, and I was in the 75th Ranger Regiment for my whole enlistment. And that ended up being a real pivotal point in my development as a human being, because I was in the military when 9/11 happened. And we,
What are your thoughts on Afghanistan, how we ended things?
I say this anytime that this comes up in conversation, is that any private in the military, so E1, which is this is the lowest rank that you come out of boot camp with, understands when you secure an objective, you have to have a security element around the perimeter, and then you go inside and you do whatever the operation entails, and then the operational element will leave, and then the last to collapse is your security perimeter. That's the last to pull out. It doesn't matter if it's an airfield or if it's a building or if it's some kind of compound. It's infantryman 101 that nobody in the military does not understand. So when we saw that they collapsed the security perimeters around the airfield before they got the people out, it either tells me one of two things. Our government is so incompetent that we can't even really comprehend the level of incompetence inside of this administration, or they did things on purpose incorrectly, just to, I mean, I don't know what the objective was, but it doesn't even seem feasible that we would have generals that would be willing to let a plan like that move forward. And this goes for every single veteran that I know. We saw that, and it was appalling. And then the other side of it is this is 20 years of commitment to this cause. And then in a moment, it's just like, screw it. We don't need Afghanistan anymore. We'll let them figure it out. And I mean, what, the Taliban were back in control in 72 hours or something crazy. And you know what I say? Good on the Taliban. you know,
Right.
hey, they played the long game. They had the grit, they had the willpower, they had the desire to see this thing through, because America, history repeats itself. All you have to do is look back over the last few generations. What do? We jump in with both feet. We're all in. This is everything. Oh, it's Operation Iraqi Freedom, or it's OEF, it's OIF, it's all these things, and go back all the way to Vietnam. It's like, we're stopping the spread of communism. And we go in there and we try and fix everything. And then when we realize, like, oh, we kind of opened a can of worms here, and this is more problematic than we thought it was going to be. We stay there for a while, and then we just throw it away. It's happened 3 times now. What have we gained from 20 years in Afghanistan? What have we gained from, 14 years or whatever it was in Iraq? And it just makes you wonder, like, when or is America going to realize that being the world, and then in just a moment in time, it's like, actually, okay, COVID's done. Now we're here to support Ukraine. And it's, what are we going to get into another war now? And
Right.
everybody was so quick to just jump on board the CNN narrative. And the reason I made that video is like, your media and your government have been lying to you for 2 years straight now. Okay, that's whatever side you're on, that's a fact. Okay, I don't care if you're blue or red, or you're a Democrat or you're a Republican. There's a lot of corruption inside of politics right now, and there's a lot of corruptions inside of the media. And so now I think it's important for Americans to take the things that they see and hear through their television and through their phone, and just be a little skeptical of it. Be a critical
Right.
thinker. Ask, why are we really getting involved here? Or what could this really entail? And here we are again. We're finding that there's a lot of scandals around Ukraine and this administration. And so we'll see how it shakes out. And I don't claim to have all the answers, but that's okay. It's okay for people to say, I'm not quite sure, but things just don't seem to be adding up? I just feel like everything we see now has an element of propaganda attached to it. And that's why I'm hesitant to believe what I see. And here's the other thing. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is the apps. Maybe this will turn will shake out and show that, like, yeah, Putin was being pretty egregious here, and he was doing this and he was doing that. And I'll be able to sit back and say, okay, I was wrong, or I didn't
Right.
see this for what it was. But it's equally as dangerous to just jump to conclusions and pretend you know everything. And that's what Americans are guilty of. We want to pretend like we have the answers to everything, and very rarely do we. And if, like I said, if you look back on our history, we've made a lot of mistakes. So maybe it's time for us to slow down a little bit in things like this. And then the other side of it is, I I, I spent the better part of a decade in
Mhm.
combat. Like, I have an intimate understanding of what that entails, what that feels like, what that does to relationships, what losing friends is like. And I just want to be very careful before I say, yes, let's jump in and let's go back to war, because I know personally the toll that that takes on our people, on our military, on our soldiers and our Marines. And all of these people that are just so quick to say, yeah, let's go to war. Why don't you go to war? Why don't
Right.
you see how fun it is? You know what I mean? Like, I honestly, right? Like, I don't think there's anyone that would dispute that. I also like to look at it like we're living in exciting times. Like, we
Yes.
might get to witness some massive world changes. We might get to witness the rise and fall of some massive regimes and some world superpowers. Dude, we could watch the downfall of America in our lifetime. And people think that that's crazy. Read a history book. Every great empire comes to an end. And if you don't think
Yes.
ours is, you're just not being, and I'm not saying it's happening this week or next year. Maybe it won't even be my lifetime. Maybe it won't be. But that day is coming, just like
Mhm.
it comes for all empires. And so I look at it like this: I am going to live my life in the best capacity that I can. I'm running my business, I'm raising my children, I'm healthy, I'm focused on my fitness and my health. I'm taking care of the things that I can take care of. And inside of your life, you have the ability to control and affect some things, and you have the ability to not control and not affect others. And we are guilty of putting our energy into the things that we cannot control and we cannot affect. And and so for you to say, I bought a gun and I started taking courses, that's the best thing that I could hear as an instructor. Because there are people out there that think you buy a gun, you put it in your purse, now I'm ready. And
100%.
nothing can be further from the truth. You're going to be able to do as much with your gun as I could do with this coffee mug in a fight if you're not trained with it. So take the time,
100%.
take the time. But this is what I tell people is like, once you have an understanding of your capability and you're confident in who you are, and you know that if you're interjected into a situation that is violent and you need to implement one of your tools, now that you know you have that capability, man, you can relax a little bit. It's a good peace of mind, and it actually helps you be calm, and it actually is the opposite of being afraid. And so your friends are like, "Oh, you're crazy. You're living in fear." No, no, no. I'm relaxed now. You
Right.
guys are the one living in fear, you know?
100%. I've been going through this training now, at least it's been 6 months. I go once a week. We train with Airsoft, and he trains on like situational awareness, how to disarm someone, whether it's a knife or a gun, and as a female, how not to allow them to move you from point A to point B. So it's so much of it, and he trains you on your muscle memory, on your fear, right? How not to hesitate, when to
Yes.
react. It's a whole science, to me, it became an addiction because I understood how much I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I always say to my students, people don't know what they don't know,
Exactly.
until you go through some type of training and you're like, oh, now you're peeling back the curtain and you're starting to understand what you really don't know. And in my gym, I see it every day. One thing that you said about your instructor that I think is really powerful and we should highlight is that he's talking about mindset, and he's
Mhm.
talking about, like,
Muscle memory. Yeah.
situational awareness, muscle memory.
Yeah.
Those are very good points to bring up because, again, you can only do so much. Like, if I teach you how to draw your pistol and how to change a magazine, right? That's an actual skill set that has to be developed over a bunch of repetition, and that's going to take time, right? But
Exactly.
one thing that you can change in a moment is your mindset.
Mhm.
And you can draw hard lines, and you can be like, you know what, if I'm in the grocery store parking lot and some guy comes up to me, if he gets within a 3-foot bubble of my personal space, that gives me permission to address him verbally.
Right.
And I tell my females when I'm teaching these kind of things, it's like, it's okay for you to say, stop, get away from me, I don't feel comfortable right now. And even if let's say you were wrong, and it was a guy bringing his groceries out and he happened to be parked right next to you, so sad, too bad. You know what
Right.
I mean? Like,
Right.
but the other side of it, that is the equal and opposite side, that is equally as important. Predators, or people looking to victimize people, they want the weakest link. They do
Right.
not want somebody that has strength, somebody that has confidence, and somebody that's willing to stand up. So if you show that strength, you show that resolve right at the beginning, a lot of times that diffuses things. They're like, oh, okay, it's time to
It
keep
will
looking.
surprise them as
Yes,
well.
it'll
Yeah.
surprise them.
Yeah.
Yeah, you turn the playbook around on them, and now you've taken that aggressive stance, and now you've put them back on their heels, and it's changed the whole dynamics of the entire situation.